So in yesterday's video I went through an up-close look at all of my new CRaFTi WORD dies before I'd started using them, showing them pristine in their packets, and as you can see now all the dies have gone because I've been using them all and the stamps are a bit dirty. But anyway, so there's 12 new WORD dies in this collection, and they have the word, a bubble, the same word in stamp form, and also loads of little sentiments, like sub-sentiments that mix and match with the main word as well. And I went through all of that in yesterday's video, so go back and watch that if you want to know a bit more about the stamps. But this video is on, well, I'm going to quickly show you how I've decided to store the dies, and I'm also going to go through a load of samples that I've made over the last couple of days as well, to show you all the different ideas I had when coming up with the concept of these WORD dies. So I've decided for ease of use I'm using one of the inserts from the medium die storage case from Tonic. They all fit on there perfectly, so it's a great way to keep them all together, and you know, you've just got to take this out of your stash to and you've got every sentiment you need, so that's a great way of doing it. And I've also got my other sets in here as well, and I just slipped the rectangle in the back of the pocket because I'm usually taking the rectangle out without all of the other pieces, so I just thought I'd show you that as well. Okay, so getting on to the samples. So my first three samples, I'll zoom in a bit, are showing the three different ways that you can use these dies to create a faux embossed background. So a faux embossed look is where you use die cuts, usually the same colour on top of the same colour, to mimic the look of an embossing folder. So the first way you can do this with these dies is just to use the letters, so just cutting the letters out and sticking them straight onto the background. You do have to be a little bit careful though, because I got messy with the glue here, and when you use spray inks over it does show, but it doesn't look too bad. Yeah. And the advantage of, okay, not necessarily with the word birthday, but the advantage of having these word dies for techniques such as this, rather than having to use alphabet dies, is that any duplicated letters, you know, you're only cutting the word once and that's it, you've got all the letters. If say you were doing happy all over the background, you'd have to cut the P out twice as many times, which gets a little bit annoying because you've got, yeah. Anyway, so having the words all in there like that, it makes it really easy to get all of the letters out, and they cut so brilliantly as well. Like even on the small Spellbinders Prism die cutting machine, just once through and the letters are cut out perfectly. So that's the first way of doing the faux embossed look. The second way is cutting out all of the letters and also cutting out the bubble in white cardstock and then laying them on top of each other, and then doing the faux embossed look, so it kind of looks like double layer of embossing, like those next level embossing folders you can get. So that's that. And then also, when you cut the word dies, hang on, I'll get one out to give us an example. Let's get thanks out as I'm using that one on this card. So when you're cutting the word dies, to do this technique you're obviously just cutting this one. To do this technique you're cutting this one, and you're also cutting this one. And if you wanted to save card or make extra use of your card, when you're cutting out these ones for this card, put both dies together and make sure that the word die is central inside the bubble die, and then you'll get loads of these as well. So you're not wasting that extra piece of card from around the negative of the word thanks. You're then getting a cool, really thin, like skinny bubble word, which is really nice. And obviously you just save any of the little pieces out the centre of the letters and you can put them back in. You don't have to, but I quite like that look. So that's that version too. And yeah, when I was cutting out all of the words for these, I had just been cutting this one and cutting this one, and then I was like, oh, the waist looks really nice. So then I thought, oh, I've left enough rim around them, so then I just cut this over the waist to give me these ones. So I got an extra card out of the same amount of supplies, really. So that's 3 ways to create a faux embossed look using my new CRaFTi WORdS dies. My next way for using these CRaFTi WORdS dies is doing inlaid die cutting. So here I have just made a messy background using some Storm Cloud Nuvo shimmer powder from Tonic. I've let it dry, and then I've die cut Love and Hugs, which are actually from 2 different sets. One of them's Love and the other one's Hugs and Kisses, but the Love and Hugs work really well together. Then I've used Licorice and Emerald ink from Izink just to add a bit of stamping using the ampersand stamp and also the XOXO stamp. And then I've added, I actually created the exact same background using the Atlantis Burst from the shimmer powder from Tonic. And then I die cut in exactly the same place, and I've swapped the letters over. So that's how I've got the 2 different colours. And then to tie this background in with the Atlantis Burst letters, I just watered down some of the Atlantis Burst powder and splattered it in the background too. And I did the opposite on the other card too, but I've sent that one off to CraftStash, so I can't show you that one. But you'll see it on their website. And then these little butterflies are from another Tonic die set, which is this one, the Mariposa one. She has butterflies in her hair and they're all separate dies, so I've made use of them. Okay, so that's my second idea I had in my head when designing these dies, because the great thing is about doing the inlay die cutting this way is the whole duplicate letter thing. Sometimes say I was die cutting the word happy and I wanted to inlay it back in, but I was using alphabet dies, I'd have to leave enough space to cut the extra P and then put the Y die on, if that makes sense. So it cuts out any faffing around you have to do to try and get duplicate letters, and it just makes it so simple. You get them perfectly spaced every time, you know, and you can mix and match them like endlessly as well. You know, there's tons of different combinations, and you can even mix them in with existing WORdS dies that you have too. So that was that. My next reason behind these dies was to do shaker cards, because you all know I love shaker cards because I've got tons on this channel. So the beauty of having the separate letters and also the bubble too is the separate letters, you can cut them into your card and you still get a legible sentiment. Sometimes with a scripty word it's not very legible, you can't really tell what the word is supposed to say, or you've got to piece back in so many weird shaped pieces that it just takes forever and you get annoyed. But so this is just a Christmas card. I thought I'd better show off the Merry Christmas, even though it's very early for making Christmas cards. Yeah, so for this one I just lined up both the inside dies for the Merry and the Christmas, ran that through my die cutting machine, saved the little inside pieces. I've also saved the letters to use at a later date as well if I want to just spell out Merry Christmas on a simple card as well. And then I simply just put acetate behind the backing, then I added 3D foam tape all around the perimeter, and then I've used some Tonic confetti. I've used the light gold hexagons, I used some star sequins, and I used some tiny little gold micro beads that I got from Poundland. And then I've used the add-on WORdS from the die and stamp combo set. So the beauty of having the inside WORdS die and also the bubble is that you can make the bubble the shaker too. So here I cut the amazing bubble and did the exact same process to make it into a shaker, but then I cut the amazing word from some pearly gold card from Tonic and just stuck them on top of the acetate so it's sort of floating. You could do this same idea not being a shaker card, and maybe even making it a window card, so you see all the way through the front of the card and to the inside of the card. You know, if you'd open the card and the Amazing would be floating in the centre, so you can easily do that as well. For the background of this card, this was using my CRaFTi Potential background stamps. This is the lace one, and this is actually stamping with the Nuvo shimmer powders. All I did was spray my glass mat with some water, sprinkled on some of the Catherine Wheel, Cherry Bomb and Solar Flare colours, and then I just like picked it up onto the stamp, just dabbing it in, and then stamped it onto the card, and it gives a really cool sort of distressed watercolour-y look to the lace as well, which I really like. And for both of these cards I've used some gold embossing powder to do the sentiments, and I've also used my double stitched A2 rectangle dies, which is the Fleur de Lis die set, to do the edgings on them. And this background was, I think, was a leftover pixie powder background, and the gold on it is the Antique Gold Nuvo Mica Mists, and this was actually the negative impression, so I'd sprayed it through a stencil and then I flipped the stencil over and pressed it onto this background in case you're interested of how I made it. So that's that idea as well. Okay, my next idea is to use the words to create a background, whether it be the positive or the negative background. I did create a card using the negative of this, however I sent that one to CraftStash too, so I haven't got that one to show you. But so basically, to create the negative effect, which is the opposite of what you see here, I just picked out a load of the different word dies, like the inside ones, and then I just placed all of them all over an A6 piece of white card, and then I die cut them. Then, and that left all of the apertures of the words, and I just kept all of the interior pieces of any letters, like the tiny bit in the middle of the A or the O and the E's as well, and I just put them back in too for that final card. But then I thought, well, what am I going to do with a half-cut sentiment of hugs or wishes or happy? You know, I'm not really going to use that, so I thought to make use of all of the pieces I cut out, I temporarily attached the panel I used on the other card to this background that I'd made, and I did this with Cherry Bomb, Nuvo shimmer powder and picked raspberry distress oxide Reinker, let that dry, and then I used the antique silver Nuvo mica mist over a stencil to create that background. Anyway, yeah, so I temporarily did that negative piece over the top of this, and then I literally just placed all the letters back in, just using my fine tip applicator bottle from Woodware with some Cosmic Shimmer glue in it, and stuck them all down. And then once the glue for all of the letters was dry, I just peeled off the negative really carefully so that I could use it on the other card, which I sent to CraftStash, so you should see that on their website. And then I wasn't sure which sentiment to pick out on this card, because I used like thanks, wonderful, hugs, kisses, amazing, happy, hello, wishes, but I decided to pick out the word hello, and so then another use for these word dies is to create really thick embellishments. So you can see here, I think I stacked up 5 of each letter to create that really raised hello, which is a proper dimensional element then, and you could even stick that back onto the word bubble if you wanted to as well. So you've got other options there too, but I just wanted to make sure I showed that to you as well. And it doesn't take too long to stack them up either, they're pretty simple shapes to stick together, and just using the fine tip bottle with some Cosmic Shimmer glue in is great as well. Then for this one, I've then used, I think they were the words off of the actual hello one. Yes, they were. So here I've got a massive hello to you, but you could do just a say hello, waving hello, a massive hello to you, my lovely friend. You know, there's loads of different combinations that you can do. And for this one, I just stamped that with some picked raspberry distress oxide ink, and then I just used my scissors. These scissors are invaluable for doing this. These are the Tonic shears, and because they've got such a long blade, it's really simple to get a good straight line when you're cutting out words like this. But my top tip is make sure to keep, so where it says Tonic and Tim Holtz, make sure that is on the outside of where you're cutting. So you'd be cutting your card here on this side, because otherwise you get a funny little serrated edge on it. But I mean, that's just me being picky, but I thought I'd tell you that. Yeah, but they're great scissors for cutting out sentiments like that. I also think those ones are great when you have something overlapping the side of your card and you want to snip it off as well. And then I've just used some sparkly pink Nuvo drops to finish off that card. So that's that idea. So going back to the faux embossing I showed you earlier, this is just using that same technique of cutting both dies together to create these elements. And the insides of all of these pieces are actually what I used to stack up on the hello for the previous card as well. So you're not going to waste anything. I mean, if you're cutting out like 6 hellos to stack them up like on the previous card to create a thick embellishment, you might as well cut the bubble around it as well, and then you get these extra elements to go on different cards too. On this card I just did, I think I used 4 of these kind of die cuts and 3 of the actual hello, because one here too. But I put one in the middle, then stuck the H down, trimmed it off, and put the rest of the word up here. And did the same on this row, and then this row I used all the letters. And for the main sentiment, I cut the letters out of white card and then cut the bubble out of vellum. That's just my favourite way of doing it. Plus it means you can make the sentiment before you've made the card, so you don't have to stick the hello straight onto the card. You're sticking it on the vellum first, and then you can stick it to your card, so you can figure out the placement as well. If I find one, I've got a Mary that I've done from before. Say you wanted to put Mary on your card, if you went straight in with the glue to stick down the letters, you would be stuck with whatever placement, and if you were coming off the card too much, that would be it. But if you cut the bubble out of vellum and stick them on this first, you can work out exactly where on your card you want to put it, and you know it's going to fit because you haven't started and you're not going to have enough room to stick the rest of the letters on. So that's one of my top tips for doing this. Plus you can make loads of these in front of the telly. I think I said that in yesterday's video. Yeah, so this was this idea. The background for this, I used the Fresh Pear Nuvo Mica Mists and Atlantis Burst Nuvo Shimmer Powders, and I think I put in some Twisted Citron Distress Oxide Reinkers as well, and then I let that dry, and then I've splashed on some Indian Gold Nuvo Embellishment Mousse as well, and I've used that to create this piece to colour the butterfly and this extra strip here. And again, this butterfly is one of the ones out of that Tonic Mariposa Die Set. I didn't mean to snip off its wing, but I wasn't paying attention when I cut from the other side. So but it looks alright with its wing half cut off. I quite like the layout of this card too. And these are my rainbow gems, which I'll put a link for in the description as well. And I'll try and remember to link to every single product that I've used on these cards too. And also going along the same lines as the first examples of the faux embossing idea, for this card, if you have the let's get the die actually. If you have the birthday die and you put all of the letters onto the bubble, it doesn't quite fit widthways on an A2 card. So the easiest way to get around that is to do what I've done here. So see, if you had this, it's like only just going to fit, or it's going to hang over slightly. And as you can see, those letters don't match up with it, because if you just cut the letters separately, you can then place them slightly closer together to get them to fit nicely on a portrait card. And my top tips for this, I know I was just saying it's easier to use the bubble, but if you didn't want to use the bubble, and my top tip is to start with the middle letter. So I stuck down the H first, then I went, well actually, I placed all the letters down first to make sure they would fit nicely. Then I started with the H, and then I think I did Y, B, and then I fitted the other letters in between to try and get a nice spacing as well. So I really like this card too. And this is using one of the little word stamps from the birthday die set, and I've white heat embossed it onto some yellow cards, so you don't have to just stamp them in black ink onto white card. You can do heat embossing too, which is obvious, but I thought I'd say it. For the background on this card, I used one of my Cosmic Shimmer spray mists, and then I sprinkled in some of the Solar Flare Nuvo shimmer powder, and I think I sprayed on some of the Antique Gold Mica mist as well. Then once that was dry, I used the In Orbit stencil from Woodware with some Indian Gold Nuvo embellishment mousse through it, just scraping it through with a spatula. Then this embellishment down the bottom is from the Square Flourish Aperture, from the Floral Apertures from Tonic Studios that just launched in the Hochanda anniversary event, and they're available on CraftStash too, so I'll link to them. And again, these butterflies are those Mariposa ones. And again, I've used my CRaFTi Potential rainbow gems, which are linked below, and I will be making more sets of them soon too. So my original idea for this card was I stuck on the word birthday, and then I decided to spray over it and make some colour on it, but I found it wasn't standing out very well because it was then yellow on yellow. So I just cut out another word of birthday. I added some of the Nuvo Aqua Shimmer glitter gloss pen onto the letters whilst they were on my glass mat, and then wait for them to dry, and then just stuck them over the top of the ones I'd already put on, and I did offset them slightly so you can still see the one that was underneath too. And I've also added a few little star sequins too on this one. But yeah, that's that card. Okay, then I've got 5 more cards to show you that were just me playing around with other bits and pieces from my collection, or different techniques I've been enjoying recently. And these are just showing how I would typically use these dies, where I've done a white die cut onto vellum, and where I've stamped the sentiments in black. And for this one I've actually drawn a doodly border around it too. I just use one of these fine liner pens. I used to like using Pip pens, but most of mine have run out of ink now, so I've moved on to these cheaper ones from Wilkinson's. I'm not sure what thickness they are. I think they're probably 0.2 or 0.3, but they give a nice line. Yeah, so this card, I used some of the Izink 3D texture pastes. I'll just get my, I'll just get one out because otherwise I'll make a mess. So yeah, these. Sorry about my chair squeaking. So the Izink 3D texture paste. Some of them are pearly colours, some of them are solid colours. And I used a mixture for these backgrounds. I did this technique on another video a little while back as well, but I wanted to do it again, and this time I sprinkled some glitter in. This is the Ice White Nuvo Pure Sheen glitter from Tonic. Yeah, so I just used yellow, 2 lots of blues and the white pearly one as well. And I used my A2 stitched rectangle fleur de lis die set for the outside rectangle for the aperture, and then I also cut some of the small fleur de lis out of it so you could see the rest of the background, because I didn't want to waste the rest of the background. I thought it would be nice you could see it through it. And I even used the positive pieces from the die cut as well, just to do some white on white decoration. And again, I've used some of my rainbow gems too. I really love the texture that this gives as well. So the way I created this background, I'll show you. I've got 2 here that I didn't use. This was using a bit of green as well, so you can see that they're opposites of each other. So all you do is splodge on your different colours, and then you squidge another piece of white card on top, and you sort of go like this and squidge it around for a bit, and then if you pull them apart like this, you get that cool texture. And on this one I sprinkled in the Ice White Pure Sheen glitter again, and on this one I used I think it's kiwi green, the Nuvo Sparkle Dust on that one. So I'm sure you'll see them popping up in a card soon. Yeah, so that was that version. Then I've also done this one showing you the congratulations word. I really love how dinky the font is, and again you would think that would be quite tricky to do, but it hardly takes any time at all to stick all the letters onto the vellum, and like you can't really go too badly wrong when you're doing it this way, because it's not like you're going to have ruined your whole card because you're just sticking the letters onto the vellum. You know, there's no risk of you accidentally putting the letters down in the wrong order, which I would do. And also the way Vicky has done the bubble around them, it's really easy to know which letter goes where. I had no trouble trying to line them up. I didn't even have to refer to the packaging, so it's really a really good design. For this card, this was a technique that Paola did on some of the shows on Hochanda when the Nuvo Shimmer powders launched. So what she did was she placed down a stencil, then she tapped on a couple of different colours of the Nuvo Shimmer powders. You just take the lid off and then just tap the bottle like this to get a little bit out. And then you take some, where's my bottle gone here? Some of this, which is the Nuvo Glitter Accents in Fresh Snowfall. You literally squeeze some of that out onto the stencil, scrape over it with a palette knife, and it makes all the colours from the shimmer powders burst out, and it looks so cool. I've got another card in a minute doing the same thing too. And then these are again those Mariposa Butterflies. Can you tell I just got that die set? And this is some of the Lunar Silver Pearlescent card from Tonic too. Okay, then I'll show you the other example with that technique. So for this card, I've used a bit of the same technique from the previous card, but when I did the inlaid cards, so I said before that I did 2 of these which were the opposite colourway around when I sent one to CraftStash. So I used all of the leftover powders that were on my desk from doing the splashes on top. I used them to create a messy watercolour background. I really love those 2 colours together because this is the Atlantis Burst and the Storm Cloud from the Nuvo Shimmer powders, but that Storm Cloud, it's not black, like boring black, it's like a really dark blue, and it mixes with that Atlantis Burst really nicely too. So that was the background. I let that dry, and then I did the same technique. I used I think it's called Autumn, this stencil from that Special Touch, and I just, where did I put it? I lined it up like that, sprinkled some extra of both of these colours through, and I tried to sprinkle them so they're almost in opposite places or different places. So there was only Atlantis Burst in the background, so I sprinkled on some Storm Cloud, and then I did the same thing with the Fresh Snowfall Glitter Accents too. And then I finished it off with the Vellum bubble with the white die cuts that again I'd used the Nuvo Aqua Shimmer on top of them to make them sparkly, and then I just stamped in black on white for everything you do. I really like that sentiment. I wanted to make sure I put that one in there because it's quite nice to, this one I'm actually giving to my parents, but it's quite nice to give to a friend. Like, you don't know why you're thanking them, but you always feel really grateful for them, so it's quite a nice sentiment. And then these are some iridescent sequins as well. Okay, so this card again is showing off how I like having the white die cut on top of the vellum, and I did a video on my new channel which is called CRaFTi Potential Know-How, which I'm actually talking on, like every video is going to be talking, and I showed how I made up one of every single word in this way. And this is actually a background that was a step-by-step in a magazine feature. It's the current issue of Creative Stamping. I had a masterclass on using ink sprays, and it's using these Izink dye ink sprays. And so this background was using the flat colours from Izink, and then I used the Antique Gold Nuvo Mica Mist. This is positively through the stencil, and then I flip the stencil over and use it negatively as well. And this is the Flourish stencil from the Creative Stencils brand on CraftStash too. So I thought I'd just use up this background, considering as I had it lying around, and makes a really nice, quick and simple card. This is the kind of card that if you're not in the mood to make a real card, you could just make a load of backgrounds, and then the next day these sentiments are perfect for just plonking on a beautiful background that you've made. And again, I've used my Fleur de Lis A2 stitched rectangles to do the edge on this too. I love that double stitched edging, it's my absolute favourite. Oh, and this is a mix of two die sets as well. This is the birthday one and the Hugs and Kisses one, so you don't have to use it as Hugs and Kisses, and it's quite nice that it's in a smaller font. So Congratulations and Hugs and Kisses are both in the smaller font as well. I think I said that in yesterday's video, but just in case. Yeah. Okay, and then final card that I've made a sample with is this one. I thought we'd do a Get Well card. The Get Well sentiment is in the Wishes stamp set, so sending Get Well wishes your way. And this was kind of like an experimental background. I think I have the other version of it here. Oh no, maybe I don't. No, oh, that's on the card that I sent to CraftStash. So this silver, this was a different technique I was trying out. I'd used this Fleur de Lis stencil from That Special Touch on another card, which you'll probably see on the CraftStash website. But I didn't want to waste the silver that was on the stencil still, so I flipped it over and pressed it onto another piece of A6 white card, and then I was like, oh, maybe it would act as a resist. So I took my Izink ink pad. It's the one that's called Cassis, but I've translated it as Blackcurrant because I'm never going to remember the names. So I just took that like this and swiped it across the card in both directions like this, and the Nuvo Mica Mists actually resisted it, which I thought was really neat. And purple and silver is my favourite colour combination too. And then I've used some glimmer paste through that autumn stencil, also from That Special Touch, or I think Woodware's making them now. And this is one of the brand new Nuvo glimmer paste colours, which this one's called Plum Spinel. Yeah, and then I've just done the black on white stamping for those two bits. I've used my Fleur de Lis double stitched rectangle for the outside edge as well. And yeah, I think that's everything. So I hope you enjoyed this video, seeing all the samples. I think I've made like 25 cards in the last 2 days trying to get so many samples done to show you, and I had to send a load to CraftStash as well. So so you'll see different ones on their website. I was trying to make like 2 at a time so that I had one to show in my video, because I knew I wasn't going to get them all finished, so that I could film this video in the daylight. Yeah, so there'll be a similar version of most of the cards you've just seen on the CraftStash website too. So because I was making so many cards in such a small amount of time, I haven't actually filmed any of these ones, so I better get cracking filming some videos, and I want to mix in some of my CRaFTi critter stamps as well. So see you again soon. Thanks for watching.